The inevitable news that we all saw coming came down this morning. The Browns have fired offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey and offensive line coach Andy Dickerson. Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns Report. Quick reminder to go ahead and click that subscribe button. A lot of news will be coming out over the coming days, weeks, and months leading into free agency and drafts, so don't miss a thing when you're subscribed to the channel. But let's talk about these two firings right here. Let's start really quickly with Andy Dickerson, and then we'll talk more about Ken Dorsey. But first on Dickerson, good riddance. The offensive line sucked this year. I knew it would be difficult replacing Bill Callahan, but they took a massive step back this season. Last week, we got a report from Ian Rappaport who talked about what head coaches are safe and which head coaches are likely leaning out. And when talking about Kevin Stefanski and Mike Vrabel, he slipped in Vrabel, who's been the de facto offensive line coach this year. Huh? I thought the offensive line coach would be the offensive line coach. So he couldn't even hold on to his own job within the building. Dickerson was a complete failure of a hire. The offensive line this season was, putrid for the first 7-8 weeks of the year. Once they got healthy with Conklin coming back and Wyatt Teller coming off injured reserve, things started to settle down a little bit, but this was an absolute no-brainer. Dickerson had to go. Now let's talk about Ken Dorsey, though. This fire is a little bit more intriguing to me because when Ken Dorsey took over the play calling from Kevin Stefanski week 8 or so, offense improved. I mean, they were putting up, for starters, 20-plus points a game. Remember, when Stefanski and Watson were working together for the first 7 games of the season, the Browns failed to reach 20 points every single game. And then when Dorsey took over, this offense got a lot better. But ultimately, I believe that Ken Dorsey was fired because this was a move for the Browns to get back to Kevin Stefanski's offense. Remember, Browns, Kevin Stefanski type style offense scheme, all that good stuff, really wasn't gelling with Deshaun Watson in 2023 pre-injury, okay? So then going into 2024, this season right here, they go all in on 4. And they're going to go get an offensive coordinator that skill set can best maximize Deshaun Watson. When that didn't happen in the first 7 games, and with the Browns now looking to go a different direction at starting quarterback, it doesn't really make a ton of sense to have Ken Dorsey here. If he was brought in to bring the best out of Watson, that failed to happen. And I'm not placing that blame on Dorsey. I think Watson did a lot of that to himself, but also the wide receiver drops, the pre-snap penalties, and the horrible offensive line didn't help Watson at all. But still, if Dorsey was here to bring the best out of Watson, and like I said, that didn't happen, and you can place a lot of the blame on Deshaun, put some of the blame on Deshaun, whatever it might be, the Browns' offense moving forward is not going to be designed around Watson. So then Dorsey is not really all that effective. I still think he's actually a decent to good offensive coordinator. I feel like he got fired his last 2 times for things that were somewhat out of his control. In Buffalo, it was because of the turnover, simply. Buffalo fired him after the Bills turned it over 5 times on a Monday night loss against the Broncos. Ken Dorsey is not the one fumbling. And then the Browns fired him because they want to get back to Kevin Stefanski's style of offense and not tailor-made the offense around Deshaun Watson, which that's not Ken Dorsey's fault that Deshaun Watson forgot how to play football. So I wish Dorsey the best. I think he's going to land on his feet. I think there'll be another job waiting for him because I think teams are going to recognize, hey, these are 2 firings that someone had to go, and unlucky for you, you were at the wrong place at the wrong time. Not that you were a bad offensive coordinator. But ultimately, when you look at the Browns' offense this year, people are going to get fired. 32nd in points, 32nd in turnovers. Heads are going to roll. Now, when it comes to who could be replacing Ken Dorsey, we have one internal option I want to talk about next. But as for who could be getting fired next, may I offer special teams coordinator Bubba Ventrone. Did special teams provide any highlight this year? I mean, Dustin Hopkins was a train wreck. Punt, kick return, coverage, and returns never provided any kind of boost. Special teams, we like to say, is a third of the game. It's not actually 1/3 of a game, right? Otherwise, people would draft special teams guys a third of the time in the draft. They don't. It's 50% offense, 49% defense, 1% special teams. But when your special teams is severely holding you back, like it was this season, failing to put points on the board, costing you field position, something's got to change. And I liked Ventrone coming over from Indianapolis. He did a great job with the Colts, and this year it felt like he kind of got sucked into the vortex of everything's going to suck this year for the Browns, and we'll have very few bright spots, but this is the NFL. It's a what can you do for me now kind of league. And right now, the special teams unit for Cleveland is not doing a whole lot for the Browns. So I would not be surprised if after some further conversations, the Browns decide we're going to go change things up at special teams. Maybe, maybe not, because they didn't fire him this morning, so clearly they weren't antsy to move on from him. But things could change 24 hours later. I mean, I remember when the Browns fired Mike Prefer, it wasn't right after the season. Some time went by, and maybe the Browns are waiting to see if, hey, with turnover at some other coaching staffs, a special teams coordinator that we really like could become available, and then we'll fire Ventrone to go get that guy. So just some food for thought right there. But as for who could be the next offensive coordinator, I want to talk about that a little bit in just a moment here. But first, I do got to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Tushy. Today's Cleveland Browns report was made possible thanks to Tushy. Finally, a resolution that isn't a pain in the derriere. Tushy bidets fit on your toilet in under 10 minutes, improving your health and saving you time/money every time you visit the Oval Office. The Tushy bidet easily attaches to your existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing or electricity. People who have made the switch to Tushy use up to 80% less toilet paper. No more clogged toilets. Save your money and your ass at the same time. Take it from someone who grew up living in Tokyo, Japan, where they have mastered the art of hands-free bathroom trips. So take it from me when I also say it's a game changer. Installation is simple and takes about 10 minutes to complete. Literally anyone can do it. Every Hello Tushy bidet comes with a 30-day hassle-free return and a 12-month warranty. Instantly improve your health from bottom up. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off their first bidet order when they use code CHAT at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com with promo code CHAT. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. So who could be the next offensive coordinator for the Browns? Well, you got two paths you can go down. Internal, external. Internal, one option I'll throw out there is tight ends coach Tommy Rees. Remember, he was at Notre Dame, former quarterback for the Fighting Irish. Then he goes down to Alabama. And then, like a lot of college football coaches, he decides, to hell with NIL, I'm not going to be a part of this circus. I'm going to the NFL where there's a little bit more stability and a coach does not have to work 365 days of the year, either fighting to keep guys on the roster or going into the portal to add guys to your roster. So Tommy Rees is one candidate to watch for. I mean, if we're just going to look at the tight end room for Cleveland this year, how about the season Jordan Akins had? I did not expect him to really blossom and be, at times, like a true tight end one for this team when filling in for the Chief. So if we're looking at the tight end performance this season, give credit to a lot of what we saw out of Tommy Rees's unit, and Jordan Akins doing a great job of filling in when needed, and of course Njoku just being Njoku and putting together some really good games when he was healthy. External-wise, we'll see what happens because chances are the Browns' number one external offensive coordinator candidate has not been fired yet. And that sounds bad, but that's usually what happens in the NFL. They might go to another team and hire their wide receiver coach, their quarterback coach, and bring them aboard. Or they might wait for a lot of incoming turnover. Black Monday is tomorrow, January 6th, and there are going to be a lot of coaches who get fired, and their staffs are cleaned out. And there are going to be good coaches that get let go because they were with the wrong regime at the wrong time. And I could see the Browns poaching one of them. So let's hit the pause button on who exactly external the Browns could go after. But personally, I feel like the Browns need to go a little bit external. I have nothing against Tommy Rees, but we need some new ideas. And I know that didn't work out as well as we would have hoped with Ken Dorsey, but he was brought in to maximize Deshaun Watson. Let's bring in an offensive coordinator that's just going to maximize the offense. Does that sound like a good game plan? Stop trying to tailor-make everything to one player. Let's bring in just a good heads-up play caller. And even if he's not a play caller, I wouldn't be shocked if Kevin Stefanski takes back the play calling duties because he was a good play caller when it wasn't with Deshaun Watson, and chances are Deshaun Watson's not going to be this team's week 1 starter in 2025, probably because he's coming off an Achilles injury, and that's a major injury to bounce back from. All right, one last thing before we sign off and turn you guys over to a full slate of Sunday football. The NFL draft order. The Browns, they are technically, I think, number 1 at the moment because they have already lost, but I think that's a little bit misleading. If the Patriots and Titans both lose today, which the Titans are slightly favored, the Patriots are somewhat a pick 'em because you've got Buffalo resting a lot of their starters, but the Patriots are still the Patriots. But anywho, if the Patriots and Titans both win, then Cleveland jumps up to number 1. If either one wins, they move up 1 spot. But the Browns are locked into the number 3 spot at the very least. So Cleveland's picking top 3, and we're going to have a long offseason of talking about what the Browns should do with that top 3 draft pick. I feel like it's not even a 50-50 split. I think at this point it's like 70% want the Browns to either trade it or take anyone but a quarterback, and 30% want to take a quarterback because they just want to hit the fast forward button and jump back up to the top by selecting a rookie quarterback, which is not an easy, one-stop solution. I feel like the Browns will be making a massive mistake selecting Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. Neither quarterback to me is top 3 pick worthy, and you should value top 3 draft picks. And taking a quarterback just for the sake of impatience and wanting to skip the line and get back to the top of the mountain is a fun idea if there's a good quarterback worth taking. If not, you are just setting yourself back another year. Before we sign off, quick shout out to the Brown and Orange Club. Tim Green, Mike Dibble, Jeremy Stallman, Slow But Sure, David Botner, Jared Brandt, James Harper, Papa T, Joseph Deporte, Mike, awesome seeing you yesterday, Ray Bidding, Dr. No, Eli Green, John Porter, Scorpion, Max T, Jacob Bate, Drunken Honky, Pistol, Kiki, Richard and James Bell, Nicholas, Time Man the Buckeye, Paul, Miami Mac, A1 Eagles fan, USA baby, Doug Wick, Invalid Argument, and then more recently, Brian, Lawrence, Kathy, Jim, Ken, Sal, and Rose. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us during that awful Browns-Ravens game we all had to endure. But I endured it with you, and that's the best way to take a Browns football game in. If you're still watching today's episode, do me a favor, scroll on down, type an emoji. That way I can know who watches all the way to the end of the video.